Welcome everybody to Detention Please podcast now on video. If you like this podcast, kindly like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. So today I'll be talking about myself, specifically a book that I've written called Mahabharata Murders. So for those of you who know me, and if you don't know me, why are you watching my channel? I've written 5 fictional books and 1 non-fiction. And Mahabharata Murders was the last fictional book that was published. So Mahabharata Murders, for those of you who haven't read it, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you haven't, and for those of you who haven't heard of it, which is strange given that I incessantly promote my book, it's a mythology-based serial killing mystery. And I know that's a mouthful. It came out, I think, in 2017, if I'm not wrong. It's been a while. And it is going to be adapted to the screen as a web series on the Hoichoi platform. Hoichoi is a premier Bengali streaming platform. It is by far the most popular Bengali streaming platform, and it has a very big user base in West Bengal as well as in Bangladesh. And so Mahabharata Murders it's been in the works for quite a while now. There have been multiple teaser for a teaser that have played on Hoichoi, and it's finally coming out sometime next month, hopefully. And there's been a stop motion teaser which was released recently. I'll put the link in the description, and the promotions are going to begin very soon. So I thought I would do this podcast to kind of address some of the questions that have been thrown at me over the last few days. When I've been kind of promoting the promos of Mahabharata Murders, I've been getting a few questions which are getting questions from all sections. And I thought, let me do a video to kind of answer all of them. So one question that hasn't been asked as part of this, but I've gotten this question. It's possibly the question that I got the most when I was doing the book, when I was going the book events for the book, was why did I choose Mahabharata? And Mahabharata Murders isn't really the only book that I have done kind of based on something in the Mahabharata. There's something in the Mine, which was my second book, which is also somewhat derived from Mahabharata. I'm not going to spoil it for you because it's kind of linked with how it ends. So Mahabharata Murders is my second novel based on plot elements from the Mahabharata. And again, the reason why it's Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is without doubt my favorite book of all time. It is, in my opinion, the greatest anything that has ever been written. And I include the Greek epics in it too, in terms of its sheer complexity and in terms of how much of human emotion and it covers. It's often said that whatever is not in Mahabharata doesn't exist. And I think that's not hyperbole. It is true in many ways. Mahabharata essentially is all encompassing in terms of its coverage of the entire spectrum of human emotion, which is why ultimately you have to go back to the well of Mahabharata for elements for your story. So Mahabharata Murders is it's mystery, but it's inspired by certain plot points within Mahabharata. And this is, I hope, if I continue writing my fiction, this will not be the last time that I will be going to the Mahabharata. I have other things also in my mind, hopefully, based on Mahabharata. But this is why I chose Mahabharata. It's my homage to Mahabharata, and it's something which when I was growing up, I've read Mahabharata so many times. I can almost say the story from memory. And I often do it to my daughter when she asks for stories. I tell her different stories from Mahabharata. It's kind of seared in my mind, and I love it. And I also love serial killers, and I love mysteries, and I love Mahabharata. So this is like puts all of it together in one package. So the second question I get asked is why, what's the big deal about a cinematic adaptation? Why does it matter to an author? And honestly, it shouldn't really, because in a way, a cinematic adaptation is somebody else's baby. You're the author, you wrote your story. And a cinematic adaptation is somebody takes it, but then they have the full liberty to change it and do whatever they want with it in terms of what works on screen. And So does it matter to the author? Should an author be proud of it? Should an author even care? Or is it just like a payday for the author that you sell the rights and then you say thank you and move away? So for me, I would say that it matters for two reasons. First is and for those of you who have followed me over the years know how much I love cinema. I mean, I started off my career reviewing movies, especially bad movies. And so seeing my work, seeing the figments of my imagination, as I tweeted once, come to light on screen, filtered through somebody else's imagination is a huge validation of why you get up in the morning and write books. The biggest enemy of an artist, as I like to say, is indifference. It's not hate or it's not love. Both of them are good. It's indifference, which is the enemy, where people just don't care for what you do. And when you have a cinematic adaptation, you realize that people care. They definitely care because, so much more money was spent, so many more hours was spent taking something which you made. And it may be unrecognizable to me at the end, and I'll come to that, but it does provide the kind of validation that at least I seek. So for me, it does matter. It does matter. And secondly, and this is possibly, I say it with a tinge of regret, that many people will not read you until and unless they think that your books are worthy enough to be made into a cinematic adaptation. Take the example of George R.R. Martin. I mean, yes, he was big before a Game of Thrones was made, but he became a global phenomenon only after Game of Thrones. Now, I'm not comparing this with Game of Thrones, nor am I comparing myself with George R.R. Martin. But what I'm trying to say is that in many cases, I think J.K. Rowling wasn't perhaps this, so I intentionally didn't take her example because I think her books were it. I don't think the cinematic adaptations, I mean, I'm pretty sure some people came to know of J.K. Rowling based on the movies, but I wouldn't say it's a big deal. I think it's mostly people who read the books then went and saw the movies. But for George R.R. Martin, that's absolutely not the case. There are many people who read the books, like me, after seeing season 1 on HBO. So this expands as an author your catchment area or your base or your market, because many people see this as a validation that, okay, if somebody made it must be good. So and it's regrettable though, as an author, saying this hurts, but it's true. So that's why cinematic adaptation matters. It matters to me because it provides a greater reach for my book. And the second thing is, as somebody who loves movies, it's just very, very inspiring for me to see, stuff that people, characters, events, sequences that ultimately germinated from my mind, coming to life in light and shadow, or on LCD screen pixels, but forgive me for the metaphor. The next question that I've gotten is, how involved was I in this adaptation? And the answer to it is not at all. Absolutely not. So they bought the rights, Hoichoi bought the rights, and I was not involved in anything. So whatever you see, and I have really little idea of what the final finished product is. I saw an initial script, and that too, most authors don't get to see even that. So I saw an initial script, which I understand has been reviewed and modified since. So I have no idea as to how the finished product is. And the question many people would ask is why? Why is that the case? Well, the tension really between the author and the adapter is as old as the hills, as they'd like to say. So the example that I always use is of Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King. So when The Shining was made, which was a novel by Stephen King, before that, Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King were very good friends, and they fell out after that, and they didn't talk to each other ever after that, as per legend. And that was because Stanley Kubrick interpreted The Shining in a very different way from the way the novel is written. And having read both, I think that Stanley Kubrick did the right thing. I think this is one of the rare cases where I would say as an author that the movie is actually better than the movie is, well, I wouldn't say it's better than the book, but it's a very different story than what the book is. The book actually does one thing much better than the movie, which is it shows the progression of the character in Shining. So Jack Torrance in the movie is basically insane from the first scene itself. In the book, it tracks the progress of his insanity, drink, being a failure in life. It delves a little deeper into his psyche and makes the character a much more real. But then again, that's the luxury that a 700-page book has, which you can't do in a 1.5-hour movie. At least web series provides you slightly more time, I would say, but a movie doesn't. So what works there is totally different. Now, why am I going into this? The thing is that your book, when I'm an author, my book is my baby. And when I give it to somebody to adapt, it's like I'm sending it for somebody to adopt, not adapt, adopt. And when a child is being adopted, you can't have the biological parents be involved in the daily operations. Just can't have it. Because for me, any change, in a way, I am more likely not to like it. Because I wrote my book, right? I wrote a book which I felt was the best that I could have written. So then sometimes you write a book and you think, maybe I could have done this better. But let's say 90% of it is the best to my effort, best of my ability. Now, when I see somebody else changing it, I'm obviously going to kind of resist. And so that's why when things are being adapted, they just don't want the author. Unless, of course, the author writes himself into the contract, which I didn't, because I was like a first-time author. So I don't have the leverage to write myself into the contract and say, look, I want to be involved. And some of the bigger authors, I'm pretty sure that J.K. Rowling would do that. But I'm no J.K. Rowling. So for me, and I understand totally from the point of view of those who are adapting, there are a lot of opinions that go into the making of a project like Mahabharata Murders. And because it's a commercial endeavor, right? And it takes a lot of money to make something like this as compared to what goes into a book. So there are a lot of opinions. And I totally understand from their point of view, not wanting to add another opinion. And it's a powerful opinion, because I can say, well, I wrote the book, so I had something in mind. So I wasn't involved in the adaptation. So I'm going to be as surprised as anybody else when I see the movie when it's first released. Again, anybody who's read the book and sees it again, I'll be at the exact same place pretty much as everybody who's read the book. There was another question on my opinion on the casting. So for me, I actually like the casting a lot, because for me, again, as somebody who's grown up watching a lot of movies and having had this complaint that stars in India actually play themselves on the screen, they don't play the character. So a Shah Rukh Khan is a Shah Rukh Khan in every movie. A Salman Khan is a Salman Khan in every movie. It doesn't matter what they call him. Sometimes they don't even call the names are the same. So for me, for any adaptation of my work, I actually don't want that. I want good actors. Of course, the people who are headlining are major names in the Bengali film industry. But I consciously would prefer not to have like mega big name stars, because what I want are solid actors. And I'm very confident in the actors that Hoichoi has chosen. I think they're really good. I've seen their other work. They're a mix of old seasoned hands like Shashwata and some very new exciting talent like Arjun. So and one thing about Hoichoi is I've been a long time subscriber of Hoichoi, and Hoichoi has really stepped up their game in terms of the quality of their series. So again, there might be one miss here or there, but overall, if I look at the spectrum of the quality of what they've produced, it's this really it's a step above. It's almost in a different ballpark, as they like to say, at this point of time. So I think I'm really confident about that part. Again, one can never say until unless the final product comes out. And I also understand that I'm biased on this. I have an opinion because it's my book, right? And it's ultimately, I always feel that these are my people. These are my characters. They came from my head. Which brings me to the last question that I often get asked, is that, will I review Mahabharata Murders? So this is a great question, and I wish I had a good answer to give you. I've thought about this. Should I review Mahabharata Murders myself as if it was something done by somebody else? Now, I could do this technically because, as I said, I haven't been involved in the movie production at all. So in a way, I am disinterested. I am a third party here. But let's be honest, I'm not, right? It's my book. So even I think I can't review it with a disclaimer saying, I wrote this book. Now I'm reviewing the cinematic adaptation of it. I just can't, because I am going to be biased. And this is something which I have said about every review. People read reviews as if it's kind of the word of some god. It's not. A review is ultimately a projection of the political opinions, the mood of the day, and the personality who is reviewing the movie. So you can't expect like consistency. But you said this about this other movie 2 years back. Now the same thing, you're saying something bad. No, I wasn't the same guy 2 years back. Maybe I didn't have some, maybe I saw that movie with, a baby was crying behind me in the cinema theater. So my viewing of the movie was kind of colored by that. That's why I didn't like it, and it came out in the review. So it's very difficult, because reviewing is an art. This is not a set of electrical tests that you run and then you say it passed so and so standard of electrical testing. That's not the way movie reviews are. Right? If it was, then I could have reviewed Mahabharata Murders perfectly fine. So here's a set of objective criteria that I've used for past movies, and I'm going to pass it through the exact same tests. But there is no such test script, right? So for reviewing movies. So I don't think that I will be able to review it dispassionately. I'll be bringing into it a lot of emotion. And that emotion could be that I would be blind to its faults, or the emotion would be that I'll be hypercritical of its faults if it does not meet my author's expectation of what it should be. And I realize that both of them are extremely unfair bars for evaluation of any work of art. So I have too much of my own skin in this game to objectively evaluate Mahabharata Murders. It's like asking a father to pass judgment on their child. I can't. I just can't. I cannot evaluate. So I will desist from writing a review. At least that's what I am thinking. And another question that was asked was, what will you do about positive and negative reviews? Will you be sharing all reviews of this of Mahabharata Murders? Will you just be sharing positive reviews? Now, I haven't thought through this. If the negative review is something which I agree with, if the negative review is so bad it's good, maybe I will. But in general, I will stay away from promoting negative reviews for Mahabharata Murders. Again, and the reason for that is the same as what I said before. Mahabharata Murders is my child, right? And I'm not objective about it. I should not be expected to be objective about it. So if somebody writes something bad, I'm going to read it, of course. If it's something which is constructive, which it almost never is, and trust me, I've been a reviewer and not much of what I have said have been constructive. So I include myself in this. I'm going to read it. I'm going to feel, and then I'm not going to engage with it. If it's a good review, I'm going to be promoting it, of course. Because ultimately, man, whatever it is, I'll say it again, I've said it before, it's my child. Very emotional towards it. And just like you, I'm very nervous for the release of Mahabharata Murders. I'm very nervous because it's going to be a new experience watching what I have written on screen, and how will I feel seeing that again, because I'm going to go in basically blind, and I'm not going to be watching it in a premiere or anything with other people. So I don't really have to pretend. I'll be watching it in my living room with my family, immediate family. So I'm going to be, it might be interesting to, for somebody else to see me watching my own movie, kind of do a watch party. But that's about it. I'm very excited. It comes out on Hoichoi. Please, and by the way, it is going to be subtitled as far as I know, in English and Hindi, because the other shows are. So if you've read Mahabharata Murders, if you like what I have done, then please consider supporting me and my work by just watching Mahabharata Murders. If you haven't read Mahabharata Murders because you don't like to read books, well, here it is, a web series. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment on the quality of acting, but very good actors essaying the roles, perfect. So I really like that. And the promos and everything, but promos are like a few seconds. They've looked awesome. I have some of the pictures which they were kind enough to send me of the shooting of, and they look amazing. So far, very, very positive vibes on my end. And I would request those of you who can to watch and subscribe to Hoichoi if you haven't. Hoichoi is available through Amazon. So it's an add-on that you can add to Amazon. So if you have a Amazon Prime subscription, this should be a no hassle to add Hoichoi. Hoichoi has other good content also, but I'm not promoting Hoichoi here. I'm promoting Mahabharata Murders on Hoichoi, written by me, my first book to be adapted and adopted. And yeah, just, enjoy it. Let me know. Hopefully say kind things to me. And that's it for today. Bye-bye.